Hello, my name is Alejandro Ibarra,
Hi, my name is Erica Bakar.
and today we'll be discussing the research article, Wildfires Modify the Parasite Loads of Invasive Cane Toads. On the right, we can see an image of the cane toad. This is the species that is studied in the research, and they are invasive to Eastern Australia.
Introduction. There's been many temperature changes that had created floods, droughts, and wildfires. In this research, they focus on the years 2019 and 2020 when the temperatures increased, causing massive fires across Eastern Australia. They burned vegetation, destroyed habitats, developed diseases, and even brought in invasive species. Cane toads that survived wildfires came out to show that they had less lungworms than toads that were exposed to unburned areas. Objectives and hypotheses. The objectives for this research, they were trying to investigate the relationship between the host parasites and the lungworms after wildfires. The hypotheses that they proposed were that the increased temperatures and habitat destruction caused by wildfires decreased the amount of parasites in each cane toad. Methods. First, they gathered all the toads from unburned and burned sites. Then the cane toads were euthanized by freezing them. After that, the date and locations were recorded for each toad that were collected. Then all toads were thawed and determined their body size and their sex. And lastly, the left lung was stretched out from their body, counting how many numbers of lungworms were present.
So, what did the researchers find? Initially, the researchers found that there is no significant difference in mean size of toads between unburned sites and burned sites, which means there's the same amount of small toads and large toads in both the burned sites and the unburned sites. They also found that from all the toad study, about 35% had parasite abundance found in their left lung. In graph A, we can see that the x-axis shows the snout Euro-style category in millimeters, which represents toad body size, and the y-axis represents the percent of toads infected. Here in for smaller toads, we can see that there is little variability in the percentage of toads infected for small toads in burned sites and unburned sites. But as toad size increases, we can see more variability in the percentage of toads infected between toads in the burned sites and unburned sites. The percentage of toads infected decreases in burned sites as toad size gets larger, and the percentage of toads infected increases for larger toads in the unburned sites. We can see similar trends in graph B. In graph B, the y-axis represents mean number of worms per toad, and the x-axis stays consistent as in graph A, which is toad body size. We can see here again in the smaller toads, very little variability in the mean number of worms per toad in smaller toads in burned sites and in unburned sites. But again, as toad size becomes larger, we can see the mean number of worms per toad increase in the larger toads in the unburned sites. And as toad size gets larger in burned sites, we can see a decrease in mean number of worms per toad. Results. So parasite abundance in these smaller toads aren't affected by wildfires, but parasite abundance in these larger toads are affected by wildfires. The results also show that toad sex doesn't have an impact on parasite abundance, so it doesn't matter whether they're male or female. That didn't have an impact on the results. Why did larger toads have a higher parasite abundance compared to smaller toads in the unburned sites? Well, larger toads are more likely to be older and in which they've had more time to be more exposed to parasites. Larger toads are also more resistant to desiccation, which means they're more resistant to becoming physically dry, which means they could reside in these dry habitats. And in dry habitats, toads tend to live in these clustered groups in which transmission of parasites is easier amongst the toads. What are some possibilities for the reduction in parasites? Well, one possibility is where the wildfire occurred, it could have been far from a body of water, which means that these infective larvae couldn't seek refuge during the fire and died. Another possibility is after wildfire, a sun-exposed landscape is formed due to the destruction of and burning of the trees, and these parasites struggle to live in sun-exposed landscapes. And also, after a wildfire, soil tends to become drier, and these parasites also struggle to live in dry soil. Also, after a wildfire, a broad landscape is formed, and an influx of immigrant toads enter the area of the burned site, and these immigrant toads potentially didn't have parasite abundance from where they're from, which means that potentially that shows a reduction in parasites in these burned sites. These immigrant toads are from there, so they possibly haven't been involved in the transmission of parasites among the toads that did used to live in the burned site. And the results do support the hypothesis in which the researchers hypothesized that that wildfires do affect and decrease the parasite abundance in toads, and the results support the hypothesis. The hypothesis is supported by the results. The conclusion. So wildfires decrease the parasite abundance in larger toads, and parasite abundance in smaller toads is not affected by wildfires. So why is this a problem? Well, wildfire occurrence is increasing due to climate change and human activities. So our large ecological footprint is helping advance climate change, which is causing increased temperatures, which increase wildfire occurrences. And these wildfires are helping increase the populations of these cane toads in Eastern Australia, in which are invasive too. Invasive species means they're non-native and are causing harm to the ecosystem, and these cane toads are invasive to Eastern Australia. So the more wildfires that occur in this area, the bigger increase we see of this cane toad population in Eastern Australia, and the more negatively affected the ecosystem is and the species that live in that ecosystem as well. And what are some solutions? Primarily prevention. We can prevent the occurrence of wildfires with forest management by reducing human activity in these forests where wildfires are occurring, and by helping solve climate change. And how can we solve climate change? We can try to reduce our ecological footprint. We can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which could, all in all, help prevent wildfire occurrences. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.